Hi ladies, so I have a guest expert tonight. Her name is Faye Cox and she is from Faye Cox Coaching. So she works with people on a daily basis who are suffering because their spouse, their friends, their families have an addiction. So Faye is a specialist in helping people to sort of look after themselves, giving them strategies and ways to deal with that, and just helping them to deal with it themselves, because obviously quite often we'll be trying to help the person who's actually the addict and maybe not realising how it's affecting us and not getting the help that we need as well for that. So I'm hoping she's going to pop on in a minute and I'll be able to add her in, because I've tried to do this live a couple of times tonight and we're having some real technical difficulties, which is really annoying. So I'm hoping that Faye will be able to get on and we should be able to get going with this. So I'll turn on my little requests and see if we can get her on now, which would be good because my internet seems to be working now. It's having issues with the Wi-Fi, but I've now managed to get it on my phone, so I just need to add Faye in when she is on there. Let's see. And if anyone has any questions for Faye, you can either pop them down in the box below or send them through on Messenger if you want to later on. If you've got anything you want to ask her, then by all means, because she's absolutely brilliant. She's the source of knowledge and she'll be able to answer all those questions for you. So I've put my guest request on, so I'm hoping she's going to be able to invite herself in now. Let's see, because it's not letting me see that she's on. Right, Faye wants to be added. Yay!
Oh my god! That's showing me and modern technology. We're not best of friends. I'm hoping you're going to tell me it was nothing to do with what I was doing.
Absolutely, it's all to do with me.
It's all to do with me.
I don't know what.
Position is like, oh my god, I'm going to move my position just in case it's me. I can hear it today.
Do you want to tell everyone maybe a little bit about you?
Yeah, my name is Faye Cox. My company and business that I run is Faye Cox Coaching. I went primarily to help people who live in co-addiction. I mainly work with women who live with partners predominantly, partners, parents, siblings, friends, who suffer with a long-term or who are already in the first stages of recovery from an addiction. The addictions that I've dealt with myself that I have experience in are drug, gambling and alcohol. Now, as we all know, there are so many other addictions out there, even to things like sugar. And many people have sugar addictions, which do also affect the family members and their parents who support them from the background that so many people, or actually most people, forget about because they don't really know what they're going through.
That's it. Absolutely.
That's it. Absolutely.
Okay. Can you hear me okay?
Can you hear me okay?
Okay, super. Because I've still got a replay that I can hear.
A replay that I can hear.
So what I'm going to do is let you talk a little bit about your specific subject, the sort of clients you work with, what they're going through, things like that.
Predominantly, I work with women. And I'm finding that I'm actually attracting women who are sort of between 35 and sort of in their early 40s. I don't know whether that's coincidental because I'm in my own. And they feel that they're more comfortable with speaking to somebody who's been through something very similar to them, who is of a similar age. I do work with men as well. But I target women predominantly because I think they find it easier to come and speak to another woman about this kind of stuff. A lot of the women that come to me, some of these women I've known for a little while, but obviously they're not talking to me about it until they're hearing kind of what I've been through and the knowledge that I have and who else I'm working with. Then they tend to be asking me, we're just meeting up for a coffee that I think is just a sort of casual chat, and then they start to open up and let me know what they've been through, and I talk them through how I changed as a person, how I needed to change, and the things that needed to happen in my life in order for me to rediscover who I was as a person. One of the biggest things that happens when you're sharing a home or sharing a life with somebody who has an addiction is you get completely lost as a person, and you actually become obsessed, and dare I say the word addicted to their addiction, because your life becomes about helping them, supporting them, what they're going through. Where are they? What are they doing? Are they out doing what you don't want them to be doing? Especially if they're in recovery, you become paranoid, suspicious of everything, and you start to wonder who the bloody hell you are. This is not me. What on earth am I doing? Checking pockets for different things. You know, it's very similar to if you think potentially that your partner might be having an affair. Those feelings that you have are quite similar, but obviously when you discover that that's not it and that potentially it's something else, it can really knock you for six. Some of us go into a relationship knowing that we're getting involved with somebody that has a dependency on a substance or gambling or, you know, anything like that. Some people go into it not knowing, and I think when they then find out, everything kind of changes for them, and they start to wonder whether they really know the person beneath, and whether the person is the addiction rather than the actual person who they really are. And I think that's where, and I think women particularly, because we're dominant carers. We're there to care for people. That's what, you become a person, things like that, and your job, your role is to care for the family, behind everything, behind the scenes. Everybody expects you to be very strong and just, you have a bad day, get on with it. But what you see is obviously you're not just dealing with these everyday problems, you're dealing with this on top of it, and nobody prepares you for that.
Do you think the women know at the time they've got issues themselves with what's going on, or they're so busy focusing on the person with the addiction?
They're so busy concentrating on trying to deal with everything else that's going on in day-to-day life, trying to support the person with the addiction and asking themselves questions like, why is this? What can I do to get them to stop? Well, the answer is there isn't anything you can do to get them to stop. A person who has an addiction has to want to stop for themselves. And if they don't want to stop for themselves, I can guarantee you they're not stopping for you. Yeah. They have to get to that point where they recognise the problem and they want to do something about it. What you need to do for yourself is start to look at where you've become lost. What is it you need to do and look at within yourself to make yourself happier and pull yourself out of it? That can be things like practicing a bit more self-love, doing something for yourself, rather than the focus being on the kids or your partner, or or say a parent, for example. There is a trick that you can learn, which took me a long time to learn, which is to support somebody, to really be able to be there for somebody, but to be able to have this kind of shell, this coat on that you're wearing, that when that person goes out the door to work or wherever they might be going, that leaves with them. So you can carry on your day, whatever it is you need to do in here, without carrying that around with you constantly. It's like being able to take it off and put it down for a little while. That's quite a difficult thing to learn, and that's something that I do help a lot of women with, is to be able to deal with it, to either become a better supporter or to get to a point whether they need to realise whether they want to continue supporting or whether for their own sake the answer is to walk away, which is a very difficult decision to make. Stay and their partner becomes into recovery, and they work on that together. But I think in order for that to happen, there has to be a reconnection process.
That was something you were sort of telling me a little bit about earlier, wasn't it?
About that reconnection,
bringing people back together.
I'm working on a very exciting project with a guy called Paul Gibson, who is a hypnotherapist who specialises in addiction. We got chatting at a meeting and decided it would be really good to write a programme for the couples, whether they be partnered couples or whether it be a mother and a son or a father and a daughter or a friend, whatever the relationship could be. He would then treat the person with the addiction. I will then help the supporter to find where they need to be, get them where they need to be as individuals. But a lot of treatment gets stopped there, where you need to reconnect those people as a couple. And one of the reasons why I think this is so fundamental is because this is something I experienced myself. It got to a point where that person was in recovery, and we began this power struggle because I wasn't sure who he was, and I was the carer, and I was used to being the one that was doing the caring, and then he started to step up and come up to the same level that I was at, and I found that really hard because I'm so used to it being a little bit sort of down there. And we struggled there for quite a while, and it took me a long time to realise what was happening, and it's because we were rebalancing our relationship. I just didn't know that's what was happening. And I speak to quite a lot of women who stay, and they get to this point of this rebalancing, and that's when they leave.
Yeah. Why do you think they leave at that point? Why do you think they leave
because
at that point?
Because they don't know who that person is underneath the addiction in the first place. I was quite lucky to be able to see the person underneath. I knew there was a person underneath crying to get out of this. Didn't want to be in the situation anymore, but just couldn't find a way at the time. Some people don't have that. They fall in love with somebody, or they have a relation who has an addiction, and they know them just as the addict, not the person underneath. And it can be very difficult when that person then changes as they start to go into recovery and they start to discover who they really are. And if you don't reconnect those two people, then it's a sort of time bomb waiting to happen. And I've had some people that I have spoken to who have said their partner has been in recovery, and they've got to a point where they have thought to themselves, I want them to go out on a binge, or I want them to go and do it again because I can't deal with this. So they prefer the person with the addiction than they did the person without. And that's quite a scary thought. So that's where we came up with having the end of the programme, where we then, the two of us, would be with those two, and we would have a reconnection part of the programme at the end.
Yeah.
I'm really excited about that.
Yeah.
With the stuff that I do, you'll work with other people around them, and the way they do them, and if you don't work with them, then how can you get that place where things move forward?
I mean, no one person is an island. We all have people around us, and we all have the people who know us and love us and want the best for us. But I made some big mistakes when I was going through it. There was a lot of kind of ultimatum type actions. Well, they don't work. Ultimatums don't work in that situation. You have to find a different way, a softer way to approach it. And also, as we all know, everybody reacts in different ways. And you tend to find with somebody who has an addiction, if you approach it too head on and harshly, their natural reaction is to defend.
Yeah.
Quite nasty and defend. And they will defend, and then they'll attack verbally. I don't mean physically or anything like that. And then by that point, you can't get through because they've switched off. I mean, and I tried that on several occasions, and it sort of just blew up in my face, really. So there are different ways that you need to handle these things, and there are the things that I kind of mentor some of my clients through if they're still right in the middle of that.
But it's still that way forward. It's still that way forward. Maybe use something that didn't work for me. Change going forward.
No, not at all. Not at all. It's about, there's that part of learning and through yourself with language that they may be using, or language that you're using. It's not, a lot of the time in most situations, and I'm not just talking about in this, it's the language you use towards people, not what you're trying to say. It's how you say it to someone. We all know when you have an argument, somebody might say something to you and gone, God, that was a bit. If they just said it like that, I probably would have taken it a bit better. But because they've just gone straight in an aggressive nature, you just go, whoa, hang on a minute. Yeah. And your natural reaction is to sort of defend and attack. So it's a learning process. It's just I can help some of my clients learn that a little bit quicker so that they can become, like I say, a better supporter whilst supporting themselves and doing what they need, their side, in order to keep them up on a level and make better decisions. Because when you're in a situation like that, it's not the time to be making huge decisions because you're not in the right. You're not in the right mind. It's about having self-love. No, I mean, and everybody, no, for everybody, self-care and self-love is hugely important on a daily basis. But when you're in this situation, it's really because you just don't think about yourself. And like I said to you earlier, I got to that point where I just thought, who the hell am I? Who am I as a person? I've got no idea who I am. I've spent all these years focusing on my children and on my partner with everything that came with that. And in fact, that came even before my children. I wasn't a particularly good mum. I can sit here and say that now, and I would have never have said that before because I was just concentrated. It's also almost like I became OCD about it. It's all I thought about day and night. It absolutely all consumed any feelings and emotions that I had. And there was a particular 6-month period, which was hell. It was awful, absolutely awful. And when I think back to it now, I don't want anybody to be in that position. And there are people in that position, and I want them to be able to speak out and find themselves again, because it's lonely, it's isolating, and you just get completely lost underneath it all.
That's it. And because you've been through that, because you've been through that, doing this for others, that situation. You quite recently started up more people who are suffering.
Yeah, I've just started. February was the launch of my co-addiction support group. I live in Sidcup, so it's something that we've set up locally. The next meeting is on the 5th of March. It's held at the Hurst Community Centre here in Sidcup. And I'm massively passionate about people being able to come and be in an environment where they're completely non-judgmental environment, where everybody knows how they feel. Everyone's been through the same or something similar. You'll find people who are potentially 2 or 3 steps ahead of where you might be, who will be able to sort of let you know what might sort of come up before it happens. But it's such an important thing to be able to talk about it, and people just don't talk about it. And as women, we love to talk about stuff, yet we keep all this in, and it's not healthy. We need to be able to go somewhere and just go, bloop, there you go. And for somebody to be able to understand and go, oh, I totally know you mean, that only happened to me the other week, or I had that then, and then go, oh, thank God, it's not just me, because we all think it's just us.
And that's the thing that ask people about the addict, but now you find something. Those people who are addicts, those people who are being affected by that addiction.
Yeah, because they need help as much as the people with the addiction. And as you just said, there's so much out there for people who have addictions, but the people behind those people just get left behind. And I think a lot of it is because the people who help those with addictions, and Paul is the same, because he's never supported anybody through it, he sees it from the outside, they have no idea how it affects us behind. What they just don't know what we live with day in, day out, on a day-to-day basis.
And do you think afterwards,
what following on? Yeah, I think those effects can still be there after, even when they come out. I think a lot of people that I talk to don't realise just quite how lost and isolated and lonely they were until they sort of come out of it, and then all of a sudden they realise that they've been buried in this deep hole for all this time. But it's still there. It's still in the back. It's still buried down in the subconscious. So in that 10% of our conscious mind that we have, they're thinking, right, I'm out of it now. I've done with it. But you've not dealt with it really. You've not dealt with everything that's happened here. You still need to then start practicing your self-talk, because your self-talk becomes terrible. I got to a place where I didn't even like myself as a person, because I was lying to the people that I loved to protect the person I loved. I mean, God, it's mind-blowing. It's mind-blowing stuff when you're in that situation. So to be able to turn that all back around and be able to talk to yourself nicely, and to re-find that confidence about yourself, like to be able to look in the mirror and see somebody that you like, and that you can say to yourself, you can tell yourself that you love yourself. That, I mean, God, if you told me, especially, and that's it, I'd have just been like, you've got no chance. You've got absolutely no chance in hell, because I don't even want to look at myself in the mirror, let alone sit there and say anything nice about myself.
Yeah.
And a lot of people have that. Those are a lot of the issues that come with it.
Do you think people realise what's going on? No.
No, there are some people around me that I would say still don't. They're watching this, they will. But yeah, because it's a very personal. It's very personal, and I think the more I talk about it now, because of what I'm doing, some of what I'm doing is still helping me. It's still helping me on my journey when I'm talking to people and I'm coming with people, because everyone's story is different. I speak to women whose situations are far worse than mine was. And then I'll speak to women who my situation was worse than. And it also helps each and every one of you gain perspective on the situation that you're in. There's always somebody out there in a worse position or in a worse situation than what you're in. But when you're in it, you're in the worst situation in the world.
Yeah. When you were in it, what was the turning point for you?
Well, my partner, obviously, we got to the recovery phase. We got to that. But for me, when we got to this power struggle and stuff, that resentment kicked in. And that resentment stayed for a while, and probably more longer than I would probably really want to admit. I think that anybody does. Resentment's not a very nice thing. But when I then really was sort of discovering what I really wanted to do with my business and moving forward and where I wanted to take my life, it wasn't really then until I started to accept what had happened and realised that it's in the past for me now. And I can accept what happened. I can accept everything that went with it. And once you can accept, you can let go. But you have to accept first before you can let go. And I hadn't accepted, so I couldn't there was no way I was going to be able to let go, because I hadn't I was still I still had those feelings those kind of resentment feelings, and that look, you know, this is, you did this, you did that, and blame, and everything was blaming, you know, blaming him. But and addiction is an illness. It's not just you don't just go like that and you're just like, oh no, I'm better off stop doing that now. It's just, oh, let's carry on with life. It doesn't work like that. And I'm quite a patient person in that respect. So I'm somebody who truly will stand by somebody and support them through whatever I can. But everybody has their breaking point. And I sort of got to mine at one point, but then I was just like, no, I just know. And a lot of that, I think it depends on the relationship you have with that person. And there is ways through it. It's not all doom and gloom in the end for everybody. And I like to think that I'm an example of that. And for some people, it is the end and they move on with other relationships. But within those relationships, everything that's happened is still there. It still has to be dealt with, whether they're still with that person or in that situation or not. Even after they've come away from that situation, that still needs to be dealt with, because if it's not dealt with, it will affect future relationships.
Do you think they finish that sort of relationship when they move on? Like, and they have
yeah, potentially they jump out the frying pan into the fire. And I know a few people who have done that. But then there are a few others who are so determined never to be in that situation again. They will go for somebody who is like the absolute polar opposite of who their ex might have been. So again, it's very personal, but you could then be with the nicest person in the world, but there are still going to be things that happen. We're all human, that are going to happen, that are going to trigger stuff in here for you. And then you're going to react. And they're going to go, what on earth was all that about? But it's because you haven't dealt with what's back here. You haven't dealt with that, with those feelings and emotions. You've not accepted and let go. And like I said, until you accept and let go, it will affect every relationship moving forward that you ever have.
What tips about letting go?
Letting go's really hard. Really hard. But if you can start practicing the self-love and the self-talk and start realising that it is nothing you have done, you haven't done anything to create this, you haven't caused this, this isn't you, and in fact it's not even about you, that's a really good starting point. And then work on yourself and look at what you have got rather than what you haven't got, and again that starts to switch your mindset. Go out and do stuff for yourself. Remember the things that you've always really enjoyed doing, or that you used to enjoy doing. You might not enjoy those things anymore. You might need to go and try some new stuff. But go out there and try it. Just try it and see. That's one of the first points. One of the first sort of couple of steps, really, to them being able to let go and accept. You have to accept what's happening. You have to accept that it worked, or that you can move forward, or that you can't move forward. But there comes a point where it just clicks, and you're just a bit like, I've got to do something about this. Either this relationship is moving forward, or this relationship ends. I then go off and work on myself in that way, because I can't do it around you. But that's not for me to make any decision for anybody else. When I work with clients, they come to those decisions by themselves. It's just about the questions that I'm asking them, the scenarios I might be getting them to imagine themselves in, for them to be able to make those decisions.
Having spoken to some women myself who have been through this, some of them had some guilt around it, about when to cut off, and I will cut off, and what would you say?
Definitely not. It's different for everybody. Everybody's relationship is different with whoever they might be dealing with. Some people might be able to just cut off. And for some people, that is the right thing to do, but not for everybody. There's no right or wrong answer to how you move forward. If it's, say, somebody who's a family member, if they are causing you particular distress and you're uncomfortable, there is nothing wrong with distancing yourself from that person. And like we said at the beginning, they have to want to help themselves. If they don't want to accept that they have the problem and they don't want to move forward and do anything about it, you can't make them do that. They have to take responsibility for themselves, the same as you have to take responsibility for yourself. But you can still be there and support that person if you choose to, but you don't have to be so close. You can step back. And sometimes you have to step back to look at yourself, do some work on yourself to be able to step back in. And some occasions, when you step back in, you're in a much better position to be able to help somebody if they want your help. But sometimes you have to accept they don't want your help.
That's it. Definitely.
And there is a time to go, that's it, if you don't want my help, I can't. If you can't get yourself, the most important person and the person you will spend the most of your time with in your life is yourself. You are the most important person in your life. Now, don't get me wrong. When you're younger, most of us are taught, don't be so full of your own self-importance. Oh, don't be so big-headed, don't be so da-da-da. But so a lot of us don't feel that we have the right to feel that about ourselves. But if you don't, then you're going to end up quite low. And you could even potentially end up with a partner being exactly where they are.
Yeah.
And I know of stories like that as well, where people, they join them. They end up, because they get so low and so low with it, that they actually join them. And then within that is an incredibly toxic environment.
And then who's there?
Well, no, there's only the outside. You will potentially get one person who then goes, right, I can't do this anymore, I can't do this anymore. If that person is still going round and round and round in that washing machine, and you've decided you're getting out, how do you come away from that? Because there's that some validation there, is that they will try and suck you straight back. They'll try and suck you back in. Yeah. Because that justifies what they're doing, and they need you to justify what they're doing. So it's really hard then to pull in those situations. But I mean, that's a different, that's a completely different topic for another day, if I'm honest, because there's so much in it just by itself.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What is it you wanted to cover around this to sort of help people?
I think mainly I don't want anybody to feel like they have no one to turn to. I don't want anybody to feel like they are alone, because you're not. No one going through this is alone, and nobody has to be alone. There are people out there, like myself, who have been there, and there are people who are there to help you, or even there to be sounding boards. But please don't go through it alone. Please don't end up in that really lonely, isolating place, because it's really not a nice place to go, and the comeback's quite hard.
And it's not if you're in a situation like reach out to someone, and if they want to talk to you,
I have my website, which is like I said, my business is Faye Cox Coaching. So if you just Google Faye Cox Coaching, I will be there. You can get me through my Facebook page, which is Faye Cox Coaching, or they can just drop me an email. And my email address is faye@fayecoxcoaching.co.uk. So if anybody just wants to contact me, wants to get on the phone for a couple of minutes, just hear a little bit more and see if there's anything I can help them with in any way, then please do. The thought of people still struggling through this by themselves I mean, this is to say it's a passion of mine is a little bit of an understatement. It's just sort of, we all go through certain experiences that lead us to do what we do, and that's why we're so passionate about the things that we do, because we know exactly how, and I know exactly how these people feel, and I want to help as many people as possible to bring themselves back and to be themselves again, and to be happy and have a smile on their face and find their own inner peace and move forward.
Yeah. Well, thank you for talking to us. It was really interesting. I really hope people can reach out, because, like you said, you've done it yourself. Now you're helping. So,
Yeah.
hopefully, reach out.
Even if there's one or two people out there who've been listening to this, that even that's just helped with them realising that they're not by themselves. There is hope. Then it's all worthwhile. Every time I talk about what I do and what I've been through and how I help people, at least one or two people sort of come out the woodwork and come to me and start talking about it. That I mean, I've been through it myself, that I would never have said or would have known just having a conversation with them until they then start to open up about their feelings.
That's it.
Thank you very much for having me.
Thank you, sir. And if you want to maybe put the links for your Facebook group down below.
Yeah, I will do. I'll also, actually quickly, I'll just show you my little flyer from a group, actually. There's my flyer for my local group. The plan is to grow these groups. Obviously, they're just local at the moment, but the plan is to have groups all over. Obviously, I can't help everybody from where I am, but I'd like people to have somewhere that they can go sort of face to face in groups. So watch this space on these. They will be growing and they will be reaching other areas.
Exciting.
Exciting.
Oh, well, anyone got any questions, send them across to Faye.
Send them across to Faye.
Lovely.
Okay, thank you.